Do you ever feel like getting away from it all? The hustle and bustle of the modern world, the chaos, the noise, and mostly the people. Well, we've got a list of the 5 most isolated places on the earth. So if you're looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. You wouldn't believe the kind of places people are living in some of the most inaccessible locations on Earth. These particularly resilient populations, whether they're residing on some volcanic island in the Pacific or at the South Pole, have adapted to their unusual environments. The places on this list are about as far apart from other places as you can get. Long flights, day-long trips, week-long boat rides, and strenuous hikes are all required to get there. But beware, what these undiscovered lands hold is anyone's guess, so proceed with caution. Stay tuned to the end, like this video, and subscribe to the channel for more. Let's jump right in. Number 5. Kerguelen Islands. The Kerguelen Islands are nearly 2,000 miles away from civilization in the southern Indian Ocean, also referred to as the Desolation Islands, due to its extreme isolation from all forms of life. There's no natural population on the islands, but France, which claims the island as part of its territory, has scientists and engineers residing there year-round, similar to Antarctica, which is located several hundred miles south of this place. The island now serves as a major scientific hub in addition to housing a French missile defense system and a satellite. Roughly 50 scientists live and work in the small settlement, Port-au-Prince. The number rises to about 100 in the summer, but that's all. Nobody else lives here. These scientists research the glaciated terrain, which includes peaks that are nearly 6,500 feet high and active glaciers. Interested in being the 101st person on the island? Well, the only means of transportation to the Kerguelen Islands is by ship, which only departs 4 times a year. Wildlife populations on the island include penguins and seals, because they're the only ones braving enough to face the isolation and the bitterly cold, windy weather. We all know the risks that climate change poses, and even this remote island isn't safe from it. According to research, the Kerguelen Islands' ice-covered regions decreased by 21% between 1963 and 2001, a trend that's consistent with what is occurring in South Georgia, Patagonia, and other subpolar latitudes. The Cook ice cap decreased in size from 501 to 403 square kilometers within the same time period. Sadly, that's not all. The glacier loss on the islands throughout the 2000s was among the most extreme on Earth. And yet this marvel of an island is full of intriguing characteristics. The islands are actually some of a vast underwater plateau's highest peaks. Being 3,300 kilometers from the nearest populous area in Madagascar, this island is regarded as one of the most remote places on Earth for a reason. The French adventurer Yves-Joseph de Kerguelen de Trimeric, who discovered the archipelago on February 12, 1772, is the person after whom the islands are named. They're a part of the French southern and Antarctic lands, along with Adelie Land, the Crozet Islands, the Amsterdam and St. Paul Islands. So if you're planning your trip here, make sure to pack warm. Number 4. Pitcairn Island. This little piece of land called Pitcairn Island is almost exactly in the middle of the southern Pacific Ocean. Only about 50 people currently live on the island, which is the only remaining British territory in the Pacific. Many of them are descendants of the illustrious HMS Bounty crew, which we'll tell you more about in just a second. Even with access to modern transportation, the descendants of those sailors continue to live in one of the world's most remote settlements and mostly rely on farming, fishing, and selling their highly rare postage stamps to collectors. And get this, it takes a boat a good 10 days to travel to this island from the closest port. At the end of March 2022, the island reopened to visitors following a brief closure brought on by the COVID-19 epidemic. Now you can get to the islands by cargo ship from New Zealand. So the history behind the people of this island is pretty intriguing. The HMS Bounty mutineers left Tahiti in quest of safety in 1789 while eluding British prosecution. They discovered one of the planet's most remote islands, thousands of miles from any continent. The group sank the Bounty off the island's coast, sealing their fate, and lived there for 18 years without being found. These islands support marine fauna in a nearly pristine form, including entire deep-sea habitats with many species that are new to science. Alga, corals, reef fish, and uncommon deep-sea sharks were among the previously unreported species in Pitcairn. Even the world's deepest known living plant, a kind of encrusting coralline alga discovered at 382 meters, was discovered right here in this island. Except for locals' customary fishing near the island of Pitcairn, neither seafloor mining nor fishing are permitted within the reserve. But even this pristine island isn't free from scandals. The population of Pitcairn Island decreased in the 10 years after a 2004 case involving child sexual assault, in which the mayor and 5 other men were sentenced to prison. Since then, the government has made an effort to expand the neighborhood by offering land for free. Those 7 Pitcairn men, including Mayor Governor Steve Christian, were accused of molesting children in 2004. It changed many things for the island. That scandal was actually the first time they had the need to construct a prison. It was also discovered in the trial that on a remote island in the middle of the Pacific, with little interaction with the outside world, sadly, the tolerance for promiscuity and having sex with children dated back decades. But guess what? The prison has now been converted into a hostel because none of the prisoners arrived to complete their sentences. Number 3. Alert, Nunavut, Canada. What a weird name for a place, right? Alert, a small community on the Arctic Ocean 500 miles below the North Pole, is situated in Canada near the southernmost point of the Nunavut region. With a staggering total of 0 permanent residents, it's regarded as one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. But hey, it has a Tim Hortons. The closest town to Alert is a tiny fishing village some 1,300 miles away, and it'd take nearly twice that distance to get to big towns like Quebec. Alert has an airport because of its military mission, but it's frequently inoperable due to weather. Back in 1991, a C-130 pilot miscalculated his altitude and brought his plane down 19 miles short of the runway. 4 individuals died in the collision, and a 5th died while waiting for a rescue team that took over 30 hours to arrive at the scene due to the harsh weather. Alert, which is 817 miles from the North Pole, is the furthest northerly location with around 50 to 60 residents who move away when the weather gets bad. By the way, if you're wondering, the British ship HMS Alert, which spent the winter in the region from 1875 to 1876, inspired the name of the place. Also, the residents have good reason to move out, as 4 months out of the year, Alert is completely in the dark. Number 2, Motuo County, China. Motuo, a tiny town in the Tibetan Autonomous Region, is one of the few areas left in Asia unaffected by the modern world and is regarded as the last county in China without a highway leading to it. Millions of dollars were spent over the years trying to construct a passable road there, but all of those efforts failed due to avalanches, mudslides, and generally unstable terrain. Motuo is the most distant county in Tibet's southeast and is situated on the southern Himalayan slope. With a population of roughly 10,000 people, the Menba and Luo ethnic groups are the predominant inhabitants of the enigmatic Motuo County. It's actually Tibet's cleanest and holiest location, also called the Hidden Lotus in the Tibetan Buddhist text Kagyu. The majority of the local population, which is mostly composed of the Menba minority, is descended from people who came from other parts of Tibet more than 100 years ago. The subtropical moist environment that's typical of Motuo delivers lots of rainfall and spring-like days all year round, making it one of the most serene places you can go to. Motuo, which typically stands 1,000 meters above sea level, is still cut off from the outer world by a ring of snow-capped mountains. Untouched by man, Motuo State Natural Reserve has a variety of waterfalls and rivers, as well as a diverse range of plants from tropical to cold weather species. Situated in canyons at an average altitude of 750 to 4,800 meters, Motuo has been referred to as the Tibetan Botanical Garden, or the Natural Museum of Tibet, since it's home to 10% of all plant species in China. The Medog Highway, which connects Medog with the rest of the nation, was initially built in 1994. Finally, after years of landslides and natural calamities, it was reconstructed in 2013. Up until this point, the only access to the region was hiking a snowy overland route over the Himalayas and traversing a suspension bridge. The unspoiled Tibetan environment is surrounded by thick, lush forests, so the risk was more than worth it. Number 1. Tristan da Cunha, finally for Tristan da Cunha, an archipelago of tiny islands in the southern Atlantic Ocean, known as the most isolated spot on Earth. South Africa is the closest country to the island, located around 1,700 miles away, while the coast of South America is located some 2,000 miles away. In the 1800s, a tiny population of British, Italian, and American settlers moved to the island, which is still governed by the UK today. There are currently 271 people living on the islands, the majority of whom are descended from those early settlers who earned a living as farmers and artisans. Tristan da Cunha, which is barely 38 square miles in size and is a member of the same named group of 5 islands, is located 1,750 miles from Cape Town. As of 2022, Tristan da Cunha's primary settlement, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, had 241 year-round residents who were all British nationals. How did they do it? Well, land is communally held, and non-locals aren't allowed to own real estate. Subsistence farming, fishing, the sale of postage stamps, and minimal tourism make up the economy. There's no airport, so the only way to travel there is via boat, which takes 6 days to travel from South Africa. The hotspot volcano in Tristan da Cunha last erupted in 1961 and 1962, which is when the residents were moved to England during an emergency evacuation. Trying to find more about this place on Google Maps? Good luck! The only things you'll discover are a pin for Queen Mary's Peak, the northerly dormant volcano rising at the island's center, and a label for the capital and only settlement of the island, called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. When you zoom in on the map, you'll see 2 churches, a cemetery, a pub, a store, and a little museum called the Thatched House, all of which are crammed together between the harbor and a lava field and connected by the island's only road, which is dubbed the M1 quite ambitiously, if you ask us. No street view, no other pinned locations. Intriguing, right? Almost makes you want to pack your bags and go on a little adventure. And on that note, we'll wrap up today's video. Which of these isolated places are on your travel bucket list? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. We'll see you in the next one.